So playing with that new guide from Gritomatic reminded me I still have this razor's edge system that I never finished testing. And what I was looking at when I first started playing with this guy was the wear that's occurring on the actual clamp here. I want to see how badly this thing continues to wear through use. I just got this knife in the mail. This is the Ganzo FH51. You guys would probably know better than I, but I'll have the information in the description. I've already got it set up. Now, looking at the knife and the clamp, the knife actually slants the way they ground it. It's not quite centered, it slants down one way, so putting the clamp on makes it slant. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the bevel. It'll probably go lopsided. I'm not really sweating it though. If it's real bad, I'll just come back later and freehand it, get everything back in alignment. This is also going to give me an opportunity to test out my new Gritomatic stones. I've got the 400, the 1.2K, and of course my 2500 grit. I'm going to start on the 400 here. This is D2 steel. Now the idea behind the razor's edge system is it gives you a consistent angle to sharpen at. Like all sharpening processes though, you do need to grind to a burr, or at least grind to the apex. So whatever way works for you, that's the way you need to do it. For me, I prefer to grind to a burr, so that's the process we're going to use. You want to try to keep the razor's edge clamp on the stone at all times, as well as the bevel of the knife, of course. That's easier said than done in some cases, especially when you go into the tip. But we'll give it a shot and we'll see how this goes. I'm going to do basically back and forth motions, and I may come back with some sweeps, but to start out, I'm going to put a little pressure down here towards the edge of the knife. I'm kind of kicking it out this way so I can get down there in the choil. And when I get to the tip, I am kicking it out this way to get down in there in the tip. As with all sharpening, you want to stop, look at what you're doing as often as you need. And I do have this blade taped up so I don't damage the finish on it. They've also got this knife, I'm not going to say it's real thin, but they've got it thinner than most of their other models, which is a plus. Hopefully they're listening and they're starting to make improvements on their blade grinds. It would definitely be a benefit to them to do that. I think I've already reached the apex on that side. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the other. Can't quite feel a burr, but I've got a really steep angle on this side. Now, guided clamps like this can help you learn how to use your other hand. I've just never been comfortable using my left hand in sharpening. I can see right at the tip I still got some grinding I need to do. That's not going to show up for you guys. I made a little bit of a mistake here. I kind of pulled up on my hand as I was grinding the tip, and I've kind of created the start of some belly in the tip, so I'm gonna have a little aesthetic flaw right there in the tip. Got a little spot right here in the middle that's still got the original factory bevel grind left. I need to grind a little bit more down there to get to that area. But like all the Gritomatic silicon carbide stones, these are working. This 400 grit is working very quickly, cutting the steel very well. And according to the print, this is D2 steel, which is not the easiest stuff for me to sharpen. I always have problems with D2. It always fights me without fail. Looks like I've gotten down to it just about. I just need a few more strokes and I should be there. And my bevels are looking pretty symmetrical too. I thought they might come out a little lopsided due to the way this blade is, the main blade is ground, but it looks like they're coming out pretty consistent. Going from the 400 grit to the 1200. Again, these are the Gritomatic silicon carbide stones with the razor's edge clamp system. That grind you hear occasionally as I come back on the knife is me hitting the plunge grind here. I'm not being very careful. With this knife. I'm just kind of going willy-nilly with it. If I were to take my time, I wouldn't hit that. Polish is looking pretty good. It's already coming up with the 1200 grit scratches. Wow, that's looking really nice. Got a little defect in that tip, like I said, where I raised my angle too much. I went over the clamp. I'm going to concentrate a little on this tip and see if I can do anything with it. So this is the 2500 grit. This will be the last stone I use tonight. At least for the Gritomatic silicon carbide. I do plan to polish this edge with a 4000 grit Nubatama. I just inspected that stone and lapped it, and I've noticed I've got some cracks in it just like I do with my Nanowa Pro stones. Both are magnesia bonded. I just don't know why those stones keep cracking on me. And now my Nubatama is doing the same thing. They're too deep for me to lap out, although I did try. I went 3 rounds on my 46 grit, 3 rounds on 90 grit, and 2 rounds on 120 grit, and they are still there. They are faded, but they are still there, which is a disappointment. I really like my Nubatama Ume. To have that one crack and fall to pieces on me is really going to be a blow to my sharpening repertoire, because it is one of my favorite stones. And I think I'm pretty much done with 2500 grit. This is my 4000 grit Nubatama Ume. It's going to be the last stone for tonight. It's getting a really nice polish. It's coming up real nice. I'm gonna go just a little bit longer on this stone. Show you guys this bevel before I strop it. You can see it does thicken up right here as it gets close to the plunge grind, so although they did a decent job with this choil, they could have done better by making this even thinner, but it is what it is. So it starts out thick, and then as it tapers with the knife, thins out a little bit in here, stays pretty consistent all the way to the tip. And then that's where I had that little mishap where I lifted my hand up higher than the angle guide. It's the other side. Again, getting a little bit of a flare back here because although it looks like they missed the plunge grind actually starts right about here. So once again, Ganzo just can't get it right. bevel is fairly consistent. Looks a lot better than my last attempt with the Razor's Edge guide. So we'll go ahead and strop this up and take one final look and test sharpness. As far as strops go, I'm not using anything fancy here. It's just my homemade leather strop with all sorts of compounds on it. It's got metal polish in there, white compound, green compound. It's just an old piece of leather that I had left over from where I made a sheath for my machete. And that should be plenty. This took on a pretty nice polish. You still see plenty of scratches from those silicon carbide stones. That 4K is just not quite strong enough to get a mellow out, but still really nice looking. Very consistent. Got a really nice polish. I'm all out of Harbor Freight paper to cut. This is magazine paper. This knife is very keen. $152. $172. $113. So the average for this knife came out to $146. That is not bad at all. I'll take those numbers all day, any day. It is very sharp. And for what I do with a knife, it is plenty to keep me going. Well guys, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. Y'all have a good one.